I live with it every day. I can't plan very far. I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow.
It's potentially the most important event that's yet happened in human history.
It just blows everything out of the water that you've ever thought the world to be.
Some people say, oh, you just want to belong to some kind of special group or whatever. You want 5 minutes of fame. Well, I'm sorry, I hate to tell you this. This isn't a group that you want to belong to.
When they come to me or another competent researcher and they learn what has been happening to them through their own memories, that's it. That's the end of the road.
The only thing that I find important is that people know the truth.
Although sightings of unidentified flying objects littering the heavens have been recorded for hundreds of years, claims of alien abductions have only been prominent since the 1950s. Since then, aliens have been presented to us as everything from silly, harmless creatures to terrifying invaders set on destroying us all. But those who say they have seen them say the reality is vastly different than what we have been shown.
But nobody's captured what they are. And I think that's almost impossible, because they're not just, small beings with big heads.
Maybe that's why people think we're crazy, because they see movies like that. They're like, oh God, these people think that it's real? Like, how stupid are they?
A number of these events, some of the most important, have happened in broad daylight and with multiple witnesses, and nobody was playing any spooky music. I mean, it's dramatic enough. You don't have to tart it up.
Each year, countless numbers of people claim that they have been the victims of alien abductions. And that number appears to be increasing. They say that they are removed from their earthly location, brought aboard ships, and exposed to invasive procedures and other traumas that scar them for life. And both abductees and researchers alike say it can happen to anyone.
I've had 8 psychiatrists come to me about their own abduction experiences so far. Police officers, army officers, plumbers, farmers, you name it.
There is nothing in a person's life which is unique for being an abductee.
Dr. David Jacobs, a professor at Temple University, is one of the foremost authorities on alien abduction. With more than 1,000 hours of interviews with suspected abductees, Jacobs says abduction is clearly a lifelong process.
Most abductees have known something is wrong. The ones that we see have known something is wrong for years and years. They lead lifetimes of odd experiences. Most abductees wish to God that they weren't caught up in it, wish that they weren't abductees.
It's really hard to put your reputation and your face out there and say something that, you wish wasn't true.
Now living in New York, Randy grew up in small-town Massachusetts. His dad ran a gas station and his mom was a nurse. He was the middle of 3 children. At first glance, he would appear to be completely average. And he was, until they came.
Their bodies were pretty skinny, frail, and they had very large heads. So they came over and used this rod-like device on my neck.
Childhood remembrances of alien visits are shared by Sarah as well. Preferring to stay anonymous, her voice and appearance are disguised.
See it now. while the society is the way it is in terms of how it treats this phenomenon, that's the only way anyone could be. Anyone that has ever come out and not been anonymous has had a lot of negative repercussions in their life.
The epitome of a modern, successful professional woman, Sarah is now happily married, well-educated, and a librarian from the eastern U.S.
This was my earliest memory of something terrifying. Looking out this window with my sister, and I can see an enormous ship, circular in shape, low, that covered almost like that entire area. And it looked like this flower I've seen, and I can still see it now. It was brilliant. And I remember little beings, and this is what I remember saying: please let us remember this time.
Peniche lives in picturesque Nanaimo, British Columbia with her husband Brian. Her days are filled with loving family and friends and creative endeavors. She grew up in a little village in northwestern Ontario, and her family of 13 lived an isolated life. It was with family at the age of 3 that she first encountered a UFO in broad daylight.
And I was sitting on a swing when I realized that when I looked across the field, that there was a craft hovering on top of my brothers and sisters. It was a roundish shape, oval shaped, and it was just sitting in one spot, hovering over the children.
Corina Sables is a devoted mother from Kelowna, British Columbia.
I'm a normal, average, everyday person who's rational, holding down a good job. I had gone to school, university for 3 years. I had a diploma working with special needs children as a TA. I was very functional and healthy, and I was, your neighbor.
Corina recalls frightening memories from her young life in Quebec at 5 years old.
Then all of a sudden I would see this very scary face there floating in the window looking at me. And it was kind of gray, no fur, no hair, no ears. It had large black almond-shaped eyes, maybe a slit for a mouth, no nose to speak of. And I would just be terrified, and I would just pull the blankets up over my head.
These experiences are much more widespread than anybody thinks, and much more somehow easily concealed even from ourselves.
Bud Hopkins, well known as both artist and alien abduction expert, has spoken with thousands of potential abductees.
A huge number of people remember consciously most of the event. It all depends on the person. And as I say, if you're dealing with children, they're remembering the whole thing.
It was when I was in this metal-like chair where two other beings were doing this thing to me. They had this long, coiled, like wire, and they were putting it in my left nostril and sliding it up there. And it was extremely painful.
Randy then remembers being dropped back into his bed and frantically running through the dark house to his parents' room, screaming for them to wake up.
So, my dad got his gun. It was an intruder in the house. And then my mom got the flashlight. I told them that they were not human beings. They were something else. And I remember my dad telling my mom not to encourage me to talk about it.
I would get the same answer. It was always, it must be a wildcat from the forest out back behind our place. And I kept coming back to my father, but the kitty had no ears.
And it's real to you. They will tell you, no, it's not real to you. You just imagine this. And so you're sort of being forced, brainwashed, as it were, to put this on some shelf and to somehow handle it as if it's not a real experience.
In teenage years, abductions begin to have a much more invasive nature. And abduction researchers say at that age, females are taken more frequently for their reproductive role.
Eggs are taken from women. Fetuses are implanted in women. Fetuses are extracted from women.
Something, I couldn't put a face to whoever it was, doing something with this long needle into my abdomen. And when I woke up in the morning, I felt pain in that area. So I looked down and found that I had almost like dry blood. It wasn't quite dry, that filled the belly button area. And then after I cleaned it, I noticed that there was a little puncture mark.
Randy was also noticing after effects of his excursions, like headaches and flashbacks. So he went to doctors for answers.
I went through all kinds of stuff, CAT scans, MRIs, 48-hour EEGs, and they never found anything.
And talking to doctors about the true cause was out of the question, as he discovered after confiding in a school psychologist.
And then I came back the next visit and I said that didn't really happen because of the reaction I saw on his face. That I was going to be put in some special program or hospitalized or something. And that's what made me shut up even more. Deep in my heart, I knew it was true, but there was a part that doesn't want it to be real. So I was like, okay, something's wrong with me. There's got to be something wrong with me.
I stood up when I saw this photo in the middle of the hall, and I pointed at the photo and I said, are humans taken aboard these things? And she turned around and looked at me and she said, yes. And I just blurted out, I was aboard one of those things.
I'll be back.
You better believe he's back. Get ready for Terminator Night.
Judgment Day is inevitable.
The Terminator.
It absolutely will not stop, ever!
I love you too, sweetheart.
Followed by Terminator 3.
Some machines are starting to take over.
I like your gun.